Imagine a wide, empty land under a very big, very blue sky. This was the land of Canaan, the place God had promised to a man named Abram. Abram and his wife Sarai had traveled a very long way to get there, leaving everything they knew behind them. They came because God had whispered a promise into Abram's heart, a promise as big as the starry night sky. God had told him, "I will make your family into a great nation. Your children will be as many as the stars you see twinkling above." This was a wonderful promise, a happy secret that they held on to every single day as they lived in their tents, surrounded by their sheep and their servants. It was a promise that made them feel brave and full of hope. But as the years went by, the promise seemed to stay quiet. The sun would rise in the morning and the sun would set at night, and still, there was no baby. 10 long years passed. That's a very long time to wait for something your heart wants more than anything else. Sarai would look at her empty arms and feel a deep sadness growing inside her, like a heavy stone. Abram, who was now 86 years old, would look at his wife and see the hope in her eyes starting to fade, like a candle flame flickering in the wind. They had listened to God, they had obeyed God, they had traveled to this new land for God. But the one thing he had promised, the most important part of the promise, hadn't happened yet. Every day, the silence in their tent seemed to get a little bit louder. Other families had children. They could hear the sounds of laughter and little feet running around the camps nearby. But in Abram and Sarai's tent, it was quiet. They had each other, and they had God, but the dream of a child felt further away than ever. Waiting is one of the hardest things to do, especially when you are waiting for a miracle. It's hard to keep believing when all you see is the same empty space day after day. Their faith was like a tiny seed planted in the ground, and they had to water it with hope every morning, even when they couldn't see anything growing. This long, quiet wait was a time of testing. It was a time for their hearts to learn a very important lesson, a lesson that is sometimes hard for us to learn too. The lesson was about God's perfect timing. God's promises are not like our plans. They don't always happen right away. Sometimes God asks us to just sit and wait and trust Him, even when our hearts are crying out, "When, God? When will you do what you said you would do?" Abram and Sarai were learning that God's clock works differently than ours. His plans are bigger and better than we can ever imagine, but they unfold in His time, not ours. And in the waiting, He was preparing their hearts for the amazing things He was about to do. After 10 years of waiting, Sarai's heart grew tired. The sadness inside her had turned into a desperate idea, a plan to help God along. She watched her Egyptian servant, a young woman named Hagar, and thought, maybe this is the way. Maybe God needs my help to make His promise come true.